And good morning, everyone. All about the Gyro here from a sunny and rapidly warming Nashville. So today, a little something different for my channel. As most of you know, my channel centers mostly around iRacing, but also tournament level duplicate bridge. But the reason why the handle All About the Gyro exists is the following topic of this video. I am a big fan of disc golf, and disc golf had a major explosion in 2020 because of the pandemic, and I've been playing in tournaments now for a few years. In 2019, I attempted to qualify for the Amateur World Disc Golf Championships, but because of an injury and other personal life circumstances, I didn't make it. Now that I have moved from South Florida here to Nashville, it's time to take up that pursuit again. So this video is step one of what I'm hoping to be my journey to earn in the year 2022, the automatic berth in the Amateur Masters 40 and over category for the World Championships. So, what manufacturer am I going to use to make this attempt? Well, when I first started, I threw a little known company called MVP Disc Sports out of Michigan. Then I spent a couple years with the Trilogy lineup. Then in 2019 and 2020, I threw Discraft. A lot of consideration went into this decision, and what it came down to was not only disc availability, but what sort of plastic could I trust, knowing that I had these experiences with other manufacturers. And true to my name, it was time to return home. So, for 2021 and 2022, the Reemergence Tour will have in the bag the Gyro family of products. That's MVP, Streamline, and Axiom Disc. I'm really excited to return home to my first love in disc golf. And in this video, I'm going to show you some of my favorites, both old and new, in terms of molds, and explain also some of the difficulties migrating back to the Gyro family. So let's get started. My putting putters are two electron ions. This one over here is soft, this one over here is firm. Don't know which one of the plastic types I'm going to end up choosing, but it will be one of these two. Now, James Conrad has been putting with the soft ion. That's why I'm having a rethink. Now, one of the things in my bag is the weights. I throw a lot lower weight than expected. This is 160 gram. This is 161 gram. The reason is I'm 45 years old. I don't have the arm speed anymore. So I have to drop some weight to get my distance to be maintained. It's just that simple. These are beaded putters. They go very straight with a very slight finish, and they were my putter of choice when I first started, and they're fantastic. Now to the throwing putters and approach this. Now I set up my bag in a style where in each category I try to have 5 or more molds in it. So because I have my two putters, in this particular area I only have 4 throwing putters and approach this. So we're going to go from most stable to least stable. In this mold here, in its slightly less stable compatriot, I'm very excited to throw. This is the Entropy 165 grams. Picture a slightly more shallow zone, and you have the entropy. It is beefy. This is in electron medium. It's for the winter series, and I like the grip of the electron for this instead of a more premium plastic. I don't mind this breaking in a little bit, but this is going to be a wonderful weapon for forehands and for backhands in the woods. Very excited to have that in the setup. The slightly less stable version. This mold did not exist when I was first throwing them a few years ago, and that is the stabilizer from Streamline. This is also 165 grams. If you are used to throwing the ringer, this is the mold for you. It has a little bit more carry versus the entropy. The entropy is a 3 glide. This is a 3.5 glide. This is also slightly slower than the entropy to get up to speed. So this has a little bit softer finish. You can both throw this forehand and backhand. Really, really happy to have, once again, two approach this that act as gap wedges in my setup. Now for my throwing putters. I'm very happy to put back in the bag a plasma ion. This is 155 grams and it is straight stable. This has a little bit of sparkle, really hard to pick up with the light. I don't know if you can see that in the video, but it does have sparkles. I really like plasma. If you are used to the Innovo G-Star or the Dynamic Disc Fusion, you will be very used to plasma here in MVP. This thing goes dead straight and it has a nice predictable finish at it. It can handle a little bit of wind. Once it starts getting more windy, you have to stable up to the stabilizer. Excellent glide. And this, instead of the Envy, acts as my main driving putter. The reason, the Envy can handle more power before fading. I need a little bit more float and help. That's why I have the ion. For my straight to understable putter, you gotta have the Atom. This is 156 grams. This thing goes dead straight right now. Once it breaks in, it will slowly start turning to the right. I went for a while putting with Atoms. It is an excellent complement to the ion, and this is an electron firm. So when this disc lands, it'll have normally a skip and stop type approach. Really grippy. Very, very happy to have that. Now, as I put this into the bag, what bag am I using? Well, this is step one. You use what's available. And that is this bag right here from Prodigy. So I believe this is a VP3 version 2. Picture a core bag that has the braces underneath for it to sit down, and it's lightweight. It does take a slight bit of effort to put together, but once you have it put together with the plastic fittings and sidewall, it's quite a good bag. Excellent amount of space. I still have my Dynamic Disc Commander bag and my Latitude 64 core bag. Eventually we'll get a Voyager, but right now the budget doesn't budge, if you know what I'm saying. So, now that I got that squared away here, let's talk mid-ranges. So, you're gonna notice here there is one non-MVP mold. And the reason, as I pull my stash out, is there is no understable mid-range in production right now. They used to make the Vertex, the Alias, and the Theory, but none of those are made anymore. And I am hoping that in 2021, with the new injection molder that MVP has secured, the expanded warehouse space, rumor has it they're trying to double their production on top of what they have, that this gap in their lineup, if you look at the 3 lineups, there's no understable mid-range, will get satisfied, and then I can remove what I have in there right now. So let's talk about consistent, beefy mid-range, and that is the Runway. 167 grams. The Runway did not exist when I had it before. I used to try to throw the Matrix or the Tensor in the slot, and sometimes it wasn't as stable as needed. This thing, though, is a good piece of beef. If you are used to throwing the Dynamic Disc Verdict or a mold such as the Rock 3 from Innova, Prodigy and M2 would fit in that slot, maybe a Buzz OS or a Malta. This is your direct replacement. It's fantastic. It has the smallest little, it feels like a bead, but it's not. It just goes straight up. Has a glide of 4. It's a mid-range. It has good glide, but the fade is 3.5, so it will hook up. And it does have a little bit of flare to it. But you can throw this into the wind. I've thrown this in a 20 miles per hour wind. It's not flipping. It just goes straight and it will fade out. Now, the next 2 molds, I'm very excited. So, the old molds, axis and tangent specifically, cannot be made anymore. They're out of production. So MVP needed to create a workhorse mid-range as a new starting point for their new upgraded technology. They've done that, and I want to introduce you to the Reactor. These two are basically identical. This one's like 1 gram lighter. Workhorse mid, picture your Buzz, your Rock, your M3, your MD3, etc. So what's going to happen is one of these is going to end up being beat in a little bit to be the straight pushing one, and then we're going to have the straight stable be the other Reactor. Very, very excited to have it. The feel in the hand, it feels like a pre-Mac Truth. It definitely, you can feel the extra glide in it. Really, really nice disc. Goes a long, long way. Now, my one non-MVP mold, as mentioned, lack of understable mid-range, they are my Z Comets. This one is the flippier of the two. This glow one, I can throw in a little hyzer flip, goes dead straight, and it will land very soft or with a little fade. This one, once it starts turning, that's it. It's not coming back. So this particular mold is the only exception to my gyro bag. Once that understable mid comes in, we're going to be taking these out. And I'm pretty happy to be throwing these mids. Again, very important for wood play to have a good mid-range game. That's an area where in South Florida I didn't throw a lot of mids per se because many of the courses didn't necessitate that. But here in Nashville, I'm going to need that. So I'm going to put that in the bag, and then we're going to talk fairway drivers. So, fairway drivers. I have currently 5 fairway drivers. I have some old favorites in here, and I have a couple of new ones that I'm very interested to see how they fly. So, when I first threw MVP, this mold was acting in lieu of that overstable mid-range slot. So sometimes I would put 3 of these in the bag just because one of them was the mid-range And then I would always have one for stable and one for backup. So it's really nice to bring home an old friend, the resistor. 162 grams. The first thing that comes to mind when I put this in the hand is, I want to say it's the Coxsey Z from Castoplast. It's the first thing that comes to mind. Very flat, and even at the lighter weight, once it starts losing pace, it starts breaking over pretty hard. Closest disc to this, if you find an Eagle that's brand new that has no turn, this is pretty close to that. Maybe a Latitude 64 Spark, pretty similar to this. Prodigy lineup, probably an F2. So this particular mold is going to be very useful for wind play, flare shots, but it's not very tall. So for forehands, I'll be curious to see how much spin I can put on it. Now the next one, very happy to have in my bag. There is a debate in the gyro community. Do you throw Craves or do you throw servos? They're somewhat similar molds. I am a servo fan through and through. I have a plasma and I have a regular neutron. This is 156 grams, this is 158. The difference in these two is that this plasma one has a little bit more turn before it straightens and comes up. This also has a little bit more float to it. So in less wind conditions, this one goes further. This one though, this is the T-Bird, the Stalker, the F5, etc. It's so nice to have servos again. The Craves is one step up in stability for me. And for my arm speed, because I need a little bit of float, that's why I have the servo. Now the next two, one of them I threw toward the end of my time with Gyro the first time. The other one didn't exist. And I think they're gonna fly this way, but I'm not sure. And that is the Relay, also 162 grams. And, let me make sure I get it right, the Neutron Drift, single rim, 160 grams. I'm expecting this, once it breaks in, to be the long Anheuser shot that doesn't come back. This, though, I know, hyzer flip machine. Pop-up forehands, pop-up backhands. It has a really soft fade. It's fantastic for woods golf. Get yourself a Relay. It should be your first fairway driver if you're starting out. It's a fantastic mold. Now, let's talk about control drivers. So what is a control driver? Well, a control driver for me is any mold that is a 9 or a 10 speed. So fairway drivers for me is 6, 7, or 8. So these are 9 speed or 10s. Now, right now, I have 6 in this spot because 2 of them are going to be workhorse molds. I'd like to have a spare. And I'm test driving a new mold to see where it fits. Let's start with our beefy one, an old friend once again, the Plasma Motion. This is our Firebird. This is a more stable Raptor. This thing, 153 grams, but when you throw it dead straight in the wind, it's not going to flip. If you keep it flat, it just holds and it will fade out. It's in plasma, it has just the smallest amount of a pop top. And really good disc for forehands. You'll notice with MVP, they tend to be a little bit more flat on their molds versus, so that's how flat it is. I'll put that in there. Really good disc for winds, and really happy to have this motion again. And I'm just gonna say right now, I think this is the better Firebird. It has a little bit more glide, a little bit, not too much. Now, Some of you are going to go, where's your volt? We don't need volts in this setup. Instead, we're going to have Teslas. I have a plasma Tesla, 154 gram, and I have this Fission old school one. If you look at the swirls, it's 148 grams. I am thinking this one, because it's bored flat, will be a little more stable than this one that has just a little bit of shoulder to it. Here's your workhorse straight stable control driver. That's their job. These things can handle a lot of power, and then it will just fade out predictably. They have a good feel in the hand. They are like a broken-in Thunderbird. They're not quite a Thunderbird. They have just a little bit of turn to them, but for slower arms like myself, fantastic mold. Now, my favorite mold of all of the Gyro family, that is the Insanity. I have two of them. I have a Neutron Insanity. This is the cosmic one. Get a good look at that. That's a pretty one. And then I have this green with blue rim plasma one. This is 156 grams. This is 158 grams. But the Neutron is going to be a little more stable than the plasma one. I'm expecting this to be very straight. And I expect it to land either very straight down or with the slightest bit of fade. This one, though, may be the longer flying of those because it is plasma, but I am expecting this to be slightly less stable because it's plasma. And as this breaks in, I expect this to be a fantastic hyzer flip machine. Now, if you throw a harder shot than, let's say, 325 feet, put the inertia in your bag. These fly like broken in inertias. Now, the new mold in this, and I don't know where it's going to line up. The numbers are identical to the Insanity, but this is a single mold, and that's the lift. In pro tests, this thing has actually been more stable than they expected. So I'm very curious to see if the lift will actually be the tailwind driver or the plasma Insanity be that slot. Now, if the plasma Insanity is that slot, then I need to make a decision because I'm trying to reduce molds of whether this will stay or go or not. But I can tell you from the feel that the depth, when you compare it to the Insanity, this one has more depth to it. So I think it's gonna be a good test to see how this goes, but we'll see how it plays out. My final mold is the one distance driver I have because I am on the lookout for some waves and some vanishes. It's the Elaine King Fission Photon. 146 grams. And James Conrad is throwing a Fission Photon. Tells you how good the mold is and the plastic is. So the Fission is Neutron that has some air in it. This thing goes a long way if you get on it. It's very light, so you can have a little bit of extra turn and carry. You see the dome, if you hear it, you may not be able to hear it, but there's a little bit of dome to it. But this thing is fantastic in the wind. As I start tuning this bag out to maybe 4 discs per category, we're gonna have probably a second Photon because this has a little bit of sweep to it. I may need one that flies a little straighter. And I also have to put my hands on a trace. But this is basically our destroyer replacement. If you throw the Wraith from Innova, this is pretty similar. And that is my step 1 of my mostly MVP bag as I come back home to Gyro. Disc off schedule. Well, I got that dreaded thing called life going on. And right now it's being a pest. But we're gonna be practicing a little bit. I don't expect tournaments until probably April because Marches here in Middle Tennessee, you never quite know what weather you're going to get. And a lot of times it's muddy. So I want to make sure that my body is in good shape and before we go out and start playing with these, really learning these molds again. I know what they should do, but keep in mind I haven't played a lot since 2019, so I need to build myself back up. So I'm looking to play tournaments in Tennessee, Kentucky, Northern Alabama, maybe Northern Mississippi and Northern Georgia, possibly the southern part of Illinois. I'm in a really good location for disc golf. So anyway, that's about it for now. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe if you want more disc golf content, and stay on here for iRacing and bridge as well. So take care, everyone. Make sure you take care of yourself and take care of one another. Bye-bye for now.